Cobblemon, a mod that adds Pokemon to Minecraft in blocky forms. Unlike Pixelmon, however, it likes to stay as close to Minecraft as possible, as it keeps all of the mobs in the game as well. Now, what would happen if somebody would attempt 100 days in Cobblemon and try to complete a list of challenges, which exists of get a Pokemon to level 100, defeat the Ender Dragon, find 6 starter Pokemon as well as 6 shiny Pokemon, all while playing with 2 of his friends, as me and the boys are ready to take on all of these challenges. So join us on our 100-day journey through Minecraft Cobblemon. First things first, we made our world, jumped in, and picked our starters. I went with Sprigatito because I wanted to see what a Gen 9 Pokemon in a blocky form would look like. My other 2 friends went with Piplup and Charmander respectively, but I can't blame them because both of those are pretty cool too. The first day I had a little bit of trouble with the controls and it kind of got a while to get used to them. Considering I'm not really that much of a Minecraft player, I've only played Pixelmon before and then the Minecraft PS3 version from like 2012. I did remember, however, that you have to chop wood in order to make stuff, so I started doing that on my very first day, and we ended up finding some berry trees. You can get any berry from these, but the ones that will be really good for us early on are orange and citrus berries, because they can heal up our Pokemon, and we don't have access to a healer yet, so that's going to be very crucial. We also found apricorn trees, which have a different color from regular trees. They're like this orange brownie color, and you combine these apricorns with copper ore or iron ore in order to make your Pokeballs. Shortly after, I started terrorizing the wildlife and also attacked some Wooloo. However, this Wooloo was ready to spank my ass. I didn't realize it was this strong and it almost took down my Sprigatito, which would not have been good at this point in time considering I don't have anything to revive it. The cool thing about running away in Cobblemon, however, is you don't have to just press the run button. You can actually run away and that will flee for you. After some more exploring, I found some medicinal leeks which you can use to make potions in a brewing station. But that's definitely some late game stuff because we don't have any blaze powder yet. I encountered cool Pokemon like Whimsicott because normally you can't see these in the wild, considering it evolves with a Sunstone. I finally won my first Pokemon battle against a different sheep this time, and after all that effort, it didn't even level me up. Because this is Minecraft, however, I finally decided to dig my very first mine to get some stone to upgrade my tools, but once I got out, it turned out to be nighttime and I actually had my first death because I got ambushed by a zombie and a skeleton. Guess in the comments down below how many deaths I'll have by the end of this because I'm an absolute noob. Oh, and while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe either. I also defeated some rats and saw that Pokemon actually have fainting animations, which is so cool and a nice addition that makes the world feel even more alive. After doing some more exploring, we finally found a location that we wanted to put our base in, and we kind of wanted to go for a little lighthouse by the sea. I'm absolutely not a construction worker like my 2 friends here. I mean, one of them is literally Bob the Builder, but I did help them out by flattening the ground a bit and getting a lot of resources. This allowed us to build some crafting benches, furnaces, and chests which were highly needed, because my inventory is always full of junk and I need a place to store it. A couple of minutes after, our server ended up crashing, because this was the first time we ended up hosting our own server, and honestly, it was pretty hard to do. Once we got back online, I ended up finding a cave with these magma blocks in it, but it was fully underwater, and I ended up drowning, and because I didn't have a bed yet, I spawned in the middle of nowhere and had to find my way back. And I ended up going into the opposite direction, so I just killed myself again, bringing me up to 3 deaths already. Once I got back, we fought some kids and found some nice apricorns that we will use to make our farm a little later. I then went back to that lava cave to try and get my stuff back, but I ended up drowning again. I got back home, complained to Sprigatito that Minecraft was way too hard of a game, and realized that he had the worst nature ever. Plus, speed is good, don't get me wrong, but minus attack is absolutely atrocious. It's a good thing there isn't the Elite 4, Champion, or gyms in Cobblemon. We finally found some Aura Berries as a nice source of healing, and found out that there was an achievement book that I didn't really pay any attention to. I beat a zombie with my meat, and finally got some iron tools so that we can mine copper ore, which is used in a lot of recipes. I ended up going incredibly deep into my mining session, and ended up finding redstone and a ton of diamonds, so I would say this was definitely worth worth it. We're rich, baby, nothing can stop us now, but because I'm a cheapskate, we probably won't be using these diamonds for anything anytime soon. On the same mining session, my Sprigatito got enough experience to get to level 16, so I evolved it into a floor gato. I think this cat looks awesome, but let me know in the comments down below what your favorite Cobblemon sprite was in the video too. However, I was stuck down here, and what do you do when you're stuck in Minecraft? You start mining upwards, which is honestly very dangerous if you end up in a lava pool, and while it did take me like 10 minutes to get to the surface, I did eventually bring my 10 diamonds to safety. Apparently you can also take down the Pokemon with your very own weapons, as I killed an intruder that wanted to take over our base. What is this, Pal World? I finally started our apricorn farm and used bone meal on it so that it would grow faster, and one of the boys also ended up making farms so that we can kill chickens, pigs, and cows. After harvesting our apricorn farm, it was finally time to make our very first set of balls. There is a ton of new ones like the citrine ball, which is basically just a regular Pokeball but yellow. But as you can see, you can basically make any kind of ball except for master if you have the right ingredients. I tried to make the best ones possible right now because we don't have any black ones yet, which means ultra balls are out of the question. I also might be the worst bird keeper ever because I let all the chickens escape and ended up slaughtering like half of them until I realized that I just needed seeds to guide them back in. Speaking of seeds, we're also making a farm to grow food because otherwise we would be starving. Fortunately for us, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh, and I absolutely love their service because I have been stuck in this Minecraft world for over 40 hours at this point, and I have had enough of eating just digital raw pork chops. But I also don't want to stop playing for too long, and that's where they absolutely shine. They have over 45 dinner options for you. Almost all of these are incredibly healthy for you, and I know one of my New Year's resolutions was to eat healthier, so I bet a lot of you are trying to do that as well. And if you start a subscription right now, you'll get one free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. And if I want to save even more time, they have quick and easy meals that include 15-minute recipes that are so easy to make. I'd personally say it's even easier than hardcore Nuzlocking Fire Red. And unlike Nuzlocking, these are actually meant to minimize your stress levels. So if you want to cook some meals that are quality but also easy to make, HelloFresh has absolutely got you covered. And if you've ever considered helping out the channel, this is by far the best way to do it by clicking the link in the description and using my code ZWIGGOFREE to once again receive one free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and let's get right back into it. One of my friends ended up finding an Eevee, and while I was trying to capture it, I decided to steal it. I couldn't really enter battle with it because my Florgato was dead, and I had to wait for it to revive automatically. And once that happened, this Eevee was my very first Pokemon I captured, and technically Eevee is also a starter Pokemon in some of the games, so I will count it. 2 out of 6 starters acquired, 4 more to go. One of my boys then notified that he had seen an Elekid around the house, and I sprinted over there because Electivire is my favorite electric type. I wasted a lot of balls on this plug, but eventually I had my 3rd team member down. After going to the farm, I saw that it was being eaten from by a Tepig. The 3rd starter is already here, but can we capture it? Considering I have the best balls around, the answer is totally yes. My boys then said that they had a surprise for me, so I entered the house and saw a new PC and healing station that will upgrade everything for us. Not having to worry about your Pokemon fainting is such a huge deal, and now we can also capture more than 6 Pokemon and swap around our team members if necessary. Satotl was also super cute to see in this blocky form, but unfortunately we had to burn it down. A random Galvantula also spawned near the base, and while this was a little bit too high to capture, it was a sight to behold and kind of gave me the creeps because I hate spiders. Somehow a level 35 Piloswine lost to my little Tepig, and that gave him enough experience to evolve into a Pig Knight. And you can also swap around any move at any time whenever you want. While I was busy crafting some stuff, we got a pop-up notification in the bottom left corner, which is a mod we installed, that a shiny crab brawler spawned nearby, and you can actually see the coordinates so you can find it easier. Luckily it spawned on me, and I ended up capturing the red gloved boxing crab. That's 1 out of 6 shinies found already, and my friend got so excited that he really wanted to take it on, but because his Charmeleon was only level 17, he got knocked out. But he wasn't going to take that loss like a champ, as he went to heal up his Pokemon while mine were still damaged and attacked me again with his full team. He had a Shedinja which he thought was invincible, little did he know I had payback to one-shot it. And while his next Pokemon Clink was able able to take down my paralyzed and already damaged crab, all I had to do was bring in Pignite to kill it with some flame charges. He was pretty unlucky here because his next two Pokemon were also weak to fire, as Ninjask and Cottony both got burned up. I think that traumatized him because he didn't want to battle me again after this. Not gonna lie, he's also not really a Pokemon player, so he barely knows what's going on half of the time. We saw two terrorist attacks on the Tauros and a Mareep. I don't know why they would attack those, but I got my ass out of there as quickly as possible. Because we're planning on mining a lot more, I decided to build a furnace room. Or at least I attempted to do it, because it was just a big rectangle with granite as the floor. A wandering merchant then popped up with his two llamas, but for some reason he was invincible, like he had a potion that made him camouflage, but we could still hear his through the walls. We stocked up on a ton of Pokeballs and finally went out exploring again, and I grabbed a Galarian Zigzagoon, but also a Corvisquire, a Alolan Vulpix, and Fletchinder while walking past the forest fire, which meant it was everybody for themselves as I sprinted out of the forest and left all of the Pokemon there behind in the sea of flames. I did end up saving a Murkrow and a Lopunny for reasons that are going to remain undisclosed. The forest then led me into this weird ice sculpture biome with all of these big peaks sticking out of it. I ended up getting pretty fascinated about it, but then I found out that all the Pokemon here had already been seen by me, so I got chased out of there by zombies and ended up running into a Stantler, and I really wanted to see if Wurdeer was in the game, so I captured it, and not even 2 seconds later, I ran into an actual Wurdeer and captured that too. I found this unfinished nether portal with some loot, which was nice, but honestly, once again a thing I've never seen before. This Mamoswine looked at me funny, so I threw my Pokemon at him, but he was way too strong, and I ended up getting chased by it all the way home, where I saw a Gyarados in our carrot fields, but as it turns out, it was one of my friends'. A Politoed had then disguised itself as one of our pigs, but it didn't fool me, so I ended up adding it to the Dex total if there was a Pokédex in Cobblemon, but unfortunately it hasn't been implemented yet. At least not when we were playing, which was kind of disappointing. While I was admiring some Bouffalant butts, a shiny Zubat spawned next to our house, so my inner Usain Bolt decided to show itself as I sprinted towards it and wasted no time capturing it, and flexed it to my friend who was incredibly jealous. I can't wait until this finally evolves into a Golbat and then a Crobat, because I bet it will be a permanent team member for me. Zigzagoon ended up evolving into Linoon, and our entire team got swept by a level 41 Rapidash. I guess that learns us not to stand behind a horse, otherwise it might kick you in the balls. I also found out that you can apparently open up this big map to see where you've already been, and you can also place waypoints on it, so I put one where our house was so I can always get back if I go really far. My green Zubat evolved into a green Golbat, and unfortunately this thing doesn't have animations at all. Like, I was fighting a Gloom, it put me to sleep, and most of the Pokemon actually have sleeping animations, but this girl just fell flat on her face. I'm also happy to see that Slowbro is as derpy as ever, even in its blocky form. Unfortunately, it did sweep my entire team. Once my Pokemon were healed up again, I went back to exploring, found a cool Shiftry, captured a Sneasel, and ran into my first village. They're nothing like the villages in Pixelmon, which normally have a Pokemon Center and a Pokemart with some loot in there. These are just basic Minecraft villages that most of the time don't have anything worth in it. And I accidentally slept in one of the villagers' beds, which meant my spawn point was changed, so now I can die under any circumstance. At least not until I get back home. I caught Team Rocket's mascot Meowth, but this one can't talk, sadly enough. Then I was trying to capture a Magikarp underwater and saw that balls actually let bubbles out of them once you throw them in the water, which is a nice detail. Unfortunately, the Magikarp didn't want to stay in a ball, so I had to turn it into sushi real quick. I briefly turned into Tarzan when I found my first jungle biome and caught a Nincada there, but also a Mankey and an Apom, until a witch got to me.
You are maidenless.
Cursed me out of the jungle and told me to never come back. I grabbed a steel ant on top of some hills, and then a shiny Zigzagoon spawned, unfortunately not on top of me, but on top of one of my friends, who ended up killing it before I could even see it. RIP shiny Zigzagoon, we will never know if you were a Galarian one or a regular one. With this traumatizing experience, I had to go back home, where instead of everybody being sad, they just started flexing their teams. And believe me, I could take all of them on with my bare fists. A super rare Ditto then spawned next to the house as well. I ended up capturing it, but found out that there is not really a breeding system in breeding Cobblemon yet. I mean, there is mods for them, but they're really scuffed and I wasn't willing to try those out. So hopefully there will be a proper breeding system in the future. But before doing that, let's take on this awesome looking Ampharos, which gave my Linoon enough XP to evolve into an Obstagoon, one of my favorite Generation 8 Pokemon, and also the only Generation 8 Pokemon I ever got shiny in Sword and Shield. As I went back home, I saw that there was now a potion brewing station as well as a pasture, which allows you to put 16 Pokemon in it who will then free roam around your base. But unfortunately, they won't work for you like in Pal World. That makes me think if there's ever going to be a Pal World mod for Minecraft, because I'd be down to play that one day. I then evolved my Mankey into a Primeape because I really want an Annihilape. I also made my very first diamond pickaxe and went back on a mining adventure, where our investment immediately paid off by finding more diamonds and obsidian because we were about to make our nether portal. And I swear there's nothing funnier than seeing your friend being blown up by a creeper in the chat. Anyway, my Elekid was finally able to evolve into an Electabuzz. Now we just need to find an Electrizizer to evolve it into its final form. Then it was time to build our nether portal, but we didn't want to just put it in a regular place, so we built a little bridge to the middle of the water and set it up there. The nether looks so much different than last time I was here. There is now forests, there is these big strongholds that aren't even fortresses, there's big pigs that attack you out of nowhere, so I had to go back home to gear up and return so all these mobs couldn't kill me so easily. Besides the mobs, there were also Pokemon here like Ghastlies and Venipedes, nothing all that special yet, but I'm sure eventually we'll find something cool that's worth capturing. In the meantime, I got a Morlul and did some very dangerous parkouring, which led me to capture Misdreavus and Paris. Since I didn't really want to die in the nether and lose my 28 levels that I've acquired, I went back home and evolved my Pignite into a beautiful and strong looking Embor. And so far, this is definitely my favorite Cobblemon. Just imagine it shiny. I found recipes online that would allow me to make some really good held items, so first I crafted a Electrizizer, and after we flexed all of our new Pokemon a little bit more, I forced them to trade with me so I could finally have this beautiful Electivire on my team. One of my friends also really wanted a Gengar, so I ended up giving him my Haunter, which then turned into this ghostly boy. One of us found a Thunderstone, which we used on my Eevee to turn it into Jolteon, and because I had to spend these levels that I've acquired, I decided to also build an enchantment table on a new level of our house that I built myself. But apparently it's harder to make when you think because you have to surround it with bookshelves, which aren't easy to make if you don't have enough leather and paper. So I'll definitely return to finish this once my sugarcane farm gives me enough resources. My Primeape then learned Rage Fist, and after using it 15 times on opposing Pokemon, I could finally evolve it into Goku the Annihilape. And even in his blocky form, he looks incredibly menacing. I found out how to give all of my Pokemon nicknames, by the way, so Golbat is now Pukebat, Flogato is Madamake, Embor is John Cena, Crabrawler is Mike Tyson, and Electivire is the god of lightning, Zeus. Shortly after, my starter also got to its final form, Meowscarada, who looked a little underwhelming if I may say so myself. Since we're evolving anyway, we might as well evolve everything in our boxes. And so we got Ninjask, Shedinja, Shiinotic, Parasect, Beedrill, and Whirlipede. After this, we decided to install a mod that is going to allow us to ride our Pokemon. And this was hella funny because no matter what Pokemon you have, you can go and sit on top of it. And if it's a flying type, you can even fly with it. Their speed stat also determines how fast they go, so I can't wait until I have a Crobat. That's going to make me zoom across the map at like 1,000 miles per hour. We had a ton of laughs with this, but it was time to get back to work as I grabbed myself another Eevee and finished my enchantment table. And I knew the first thing I was going to enchant was my diamond pickaxe, and we got incredibly lucky with efficiency 4, unbreaking 3, and fortune 3. This is going to give us an insane amount of diamonds, I'm sure of it. And that's going to be necessary if we want to take on the Ender Dragon. We also noticed that our house was getting a little bit too small for all of the stuff we have got, so we got to building a little storage area just outside. But because I'm Zwiggo, I got distracted in the first couple of minutes of building and started crafting some Ultra and Quick Balls. I used these to capture a Jigglypuff before it could put me to sleep with its singing, and then I went back to helping my friend, and because I have no architectural insight, he did all the thinking and eventually came up with this beautiful contraption. It's definitely not a lot of storage, but it's more than enough for now. After sorting everything out in the new boxes and putting all of our good stuff inside, we went back to the Nether for another adventure. I had no idea Azula's blue fire was in the nether as well, but we did eventually make our way up to this fortress kind of thingy, where we captured the best Pokemon joke of all time, Slugmaballs. But from the moment we entered this fortress, we were kind of screwed, because these pig guys started attacking me and pushed both of us inside of the lava, losing all of our gear, which gave us a little bit of a setback, so we decided to not return there for a little while. Instead, we went exploring into the actual overworld, which is a lot safer, is what we thought, until I jumped on my Electivire, which went way too fast and drove me into a ravine as we both fell to our deaths. After getting my stuff back, we found a little mineshaft here, but there was nothing of real significance there, so we just went back to exploring, found a Smoochum, captured it, entered a town, and found a good little pupper Growlithe. And just like in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, I'll be riding this once it turns into an Arcanine. While we were in the savannah, we found some flying type Pokemon like Spearow and Doduo, which we captured, and once we moved on to a little desert town, we found some pretty interesting stuff, like a Yamper that I captured and some emeralds that I stole from non-suspecting townspeople. And apparently there's now camels in Minecraft, so I mounted one and it didn't do anything. But this camel will forever be in my mind, as it's probably more impressive than all these Pokemon. I grabbed a Farfetch'd thinking I was going to be able to turn it into Surfetch, but it wasn't even a Galarian one. So another Zwiggo stupid moment is once again in the books. My friend then showed me a trick for not taking fall damage. If you jump into a boat, then jump off a cliff, you'll be fine. And we even ended up in a swamp, which is a place where my Mudkip can spawn. And after searching for hours, we eventually found a Lotad that killed itself in the floor, but also a Joltik, which I think is the tiniest Pokemon in the game, like you can barely see it. And while we might not have found a Mudkip, we did in fact grab a Paldean Wooper as well as a Poliwag here. Some other notable captures we got was a Cacnea in the desert, as well as a Shinx, Squawkabilly in a savannah, as well as a Herdier and an Arbok with a heart on its chest. I absolutely love that pattern, and I really wonder if there's other Arboks with different patterns in this game. Inside of a foresty area, we found Onyx, which is so huge, but always keep in mind that it has a worse attack stat than like a Bellsprout or an Oddish. Inside the same forest, we also saw a Substitute, which was very peculiar, so we went up to it and saw that it was actually a Bronzor, which means there are actually Pokemon in the game that don't even have models yet, which is weird to think about. But because I was intrigued, I still decided to capture it, because maybe Bronzong was in the game. But by far our best find on this entire excursion was this Galarian Ponyta that my friend ended up capturing. We think it's super rare because we wanted to find another one for me, but ended up coming up short. So as my consolation prize, I got a Shroomish, and my friend then found a shiny Nincada inside of the jungle. Because he was the one who found it, I decided to let him capture it, which brings our shiny total already up to 3. I was just begging him to not kill this thing like he did with Zigzagoon. And our luck wouldn't stop there, as we ran into a temple straight after with smithing templates, which are used to give trims to your armor, so I'm definitely going to put one on my final gear. Our journey wasn't over yet, however, because I had to capture a Bellsprout first, then we took the boat and ran into a Lapras inside of the sea. So naturally, because it looked so majestic and beautiful, I decided to capture it, and maybe this will become my water mount, although I'd rather just fly around. Straight after, I grabbed a Carvanha, but also a Wailmer, which has to turn into the biggest Pokemon once we evolve it into Wailord. So definitely stay tuned for that. The last pit stop we made before going back home was a Mushroom Island, and you know how they have mushroom cows in regular Minecraft? Well, in Cobblemon, they have mushroom Miltanks, so I had to get one of these. It's nothing special, doesn't have any new moves or typing, it's just a new skin, and I think that is awesome. We get home and immediately evolve our newly acquired Lotad into Lombre, and then run into a Golisopod. Considering it's one of the best looking bug types, I decided to capture it just to honor my boy Guzma. Then I evolved my Wooper into Clodsire and Carvanha into Sharpedo. I enchanted some regular iron pickaxes so that I have some normal tools that could also do some decent work, and found the biggest mineshaft yet with these weird purple rooms that are full of crystals, and I honestly don't don't know what they're for. After finding some diamonds, our luck struck again as a Dratini had spawned in a small pool of water down here. I don't know what the chances of that happening are, but I'll take it as I capture it immediately. Can't wait to turn this into a Dragonite to fly on it, but in the meantime, let's capture this Clink as well and smelt up all of our insane loot that we just got. This should give us more than enough resources for a good while, but I realized that we still don't have that many diamonds yet, and we need a lot more if we want to take on the Ender Dragon. So after grabbing a couple more, we also found our first stone fragment, and this one turned out to be an ice stone, which will come in handy for either our Eevee or a Alolan Ninetales. But while I was down in the caves, I started screwing around with an Enderman, and that's when you find out. He slayed me in cold blood and made me backtrack all the way there to grab my stuff again. With all the coal we just mined, we can easily power up our furnace house, which is not only going to give us ingots, but also XP. I actually ended up using the ice stone on my Crabrawler because I forgot that he needs it to evolve into Crabominable. And while I'm more of a fan of its blue colors, I actually think this looks great as well because it makes him look angry. And he kind of looks like he has boobs too. One of my friends ended up finding a second ice stone, which I used on my Vulpix to turn it into the Ninetales that we all know and love. I'm also really looking into getting my Crobat, but in order to do that, I need more happiness. And by doing that, I need to either defeat Pokemon with it or let it walk freely out of its Pokeball. So I just did both, but it got interrupted by a Mamoswine that was trying to do some circus tricks by standing on top of a tower. Don't jump! It's not worth it, Mamoswine! I ended up getting so distracted that an Enderman killed me once again. One day, I will get my revenge on these mysterious guys. But first, more exploring. We end up going to the cold ocean, and at the bottom, we find this weird water temple. But floating just above it is something even cooler, a gigantic Delmise. While it might not be the best Pokemon, I think it fits so well in the Cobblemon aesthetic. Just a giant anchor floating in the sea, what more do you want to see? After exploring an abandoned shipwreck and finding some more smithing templates as well as moon and dusk stones, we ended up running straight into the camp of the enemies, which was a pillager tower. After a long fight, we managed to take most of them out, and we found out that they had some decent loot for us, as well as entrap these weird fairy creatures that apparently go get stuff for you, but I just let them free and that was that. While I was flying back home with Pukebat, however, he decided to just vanish in thin air and drop me dead. Gotta love great game mechanics, but not as much as I love Licky Licky's tongue. Another Eevee then also joined the team, and our stash chest is looking hella fine right now. So I use all of these new items to create a Choice Band, an amazing held item that's going to make my Annihilate destroy everything in its path. I checked out the new chest as well, and my friends apparently got a ton of evolutionary stones, so we'll be able to use these whenever we want. Speaking of evolving, let's do that by grabbing a Jinx, for no reason by the way, but also the best dancing Doug, Ludicolo. Where's Mirror B when you need him? Our Duskstone evolved Murkrow into the Mafia boss that he always has been, and we also got a big dog that made me suffocate into a wall after I sat on him. And that's why you don't ride dogs, ladies and gentlemen. Victreebel and Arcanine were next, and I could feel the wind flowing through my hairs as I was running through the fields on my fiery boy. I then used one of my Moonstones to get a character from the Rabbids games. I filled up all of my bottles because it was time for a house party. Or I guess a house crashing, as we stole everything from a village, even a link cable. And then we found some emeralds on top of a hill. I had no idea they spawned there. And you can take this as another warning to not go outside at night. Because while I was fighting some Endermen, I got blown up by a creeper from behind. But all of this ended up leading me to this beautiful cherry blossom biome where we found a fourth starter, a beautiful little grass turtle named Turtwig, which brings us up to 4 out of 6 starters for our challenge. Straight after, we found the best mom ever, Kangaskhan, and we punched a Komala with a spider eye. I suddenly found myself in a lukewarm ocean and saw that a shiny Shelder had spawned on me, so I went looking around everywhere. I think I was in this ocean for at least 40 minutes, checking Shelder after Shelder, but none of them were the shiny that I was looking for. And so unfortunately, we have a companion for Zigzagoon as we miss out on our second shiny. So I went back home and took out all of my anger on that stupid salesman and reflected on what had just happened. I had attacked an innocent man just because I was angry for a different color Pokemon. What has become of me? I don't know, but I knew I had to redeem myself. And that's when my luck instantly turned around as I found a super rare Porygon spawn in front of my base and straight after a super rare Oshawott spawn, giving us 5 out of 6 starters. And I'm not gonna lie, this little guy is the cutest. I then wanted to brew my first couple of potions, so I went into the nether and found a nether fortress with a blaze spawn. But something even cooler was here. Something I didn't expect to be in the nether. A cerulege. So I added the blade swinging ghost to my team. Luckily, I had found an easy way to traverse the nether, and that's just flying through it with Golbat. However, I ended up dying because I flew into the lava and then into the ceiling. So even if you have a flying mount, the nether is still way too dangerous for me. But that also means that I didn't bring back the blaze powder rods, and considering I wanted to go back instantly to get those, I decided to gear up by enchanting some swords and armor, and you can guess what happened next. I died again. So I did the same, flew back to those blazes, and this time I spent around 30 minutes here defeating them and gathering all the rods I needed so that I would never have to return here. But little did I know that eventually I would have to come back. With this newly acquired blaze powder, however, I was able to create a couple Eyes of Ender, 9 of them to be exact, which is not enough if we want to fill up an entire portal. So eventually we're going to have to kill some more Endermen, and that made this Onyx so sad that it decided to suffocate itself into our wall. Because we had more than enough time remaining, I went back underground to do some more exploring and looted up some spawners. But then a notification popped up. Puke Bat was ready to evolve, and so our vomit-looking bat evolved into an even uglier Crobat. But hey, at least it has a flying animation now. I don't think I could be happier with this. Once we capture a Roggenrola and get some more diamonds, I head back to the surface to immediately evolve it into a gigantic-looking Gigalith. Like, this thing is super big. I did not expect that. Although it's shiny is miles better. Speaking of shiny Pokemon, while I was evolving my Oshawott into Duod, I got a notification that a shiny Oinkologne had spawned nearby. My friend had found it, but honestly, he hadn't been playing as much and decided to give it for me for the content. And I can't tell you how much I appreciated that. So I went ahead and captured this beautiful pink pig and added Peppa to the shiny total, which brings us up to 4 now. And remember when I said we only needed one more starter Pokemon? Well, it's time to capture it because a fiery bunny was running in the sand next to me. And I'm incredibly happy that it's Scorbunny because it's my favorite Galar starter, and it always reminds me of any footballer basically. More evolutions then took place as I evolved Flareon and Vaporeon. Don't ask me why again. I do not like Vaporeon, okay? Leave me alone. And lastly, Dratini evolved into Dragonair. We're getting into the endgame now, so me and my friend were mining for a couple more diamonds before we could leave for the Ender Dragon. But in a nearby cave system, a shiny Roggenrola spawned out of nothing. I mean, I was literally just talking about shiny Gigalith. This must be a sign. We both started mining away to the coordinates where it's supposed to be, and I ended up winning the race and capturing this beautiful purple-ish stone guy. And my friend was so sad that 2 seconds later, he decided to burn to death. Once our diamond mission was over, we went back home, captured a derpy-looking Vileplume, and I started crafting all of our diamond gear that we were going to need. Unfortunately, it's only going to be the 2 of us because the 3rd guy basically stopped playing. I don't blame him because we were playing an ungodly amount and he still has a job. Now, just making the diamond armor wasn't enough for us. We had to enchant it to get godlike armor. And how do you do this? Well, you check your enchantments, and if you don't want them, you have to enchant like an iron pickaxe or something to reset the enchantments until you get the ones you need. Both of us needed a full armor set as well as a diamond sword and the bow, and that was quite a lot, so we had to find a way to easily grind up levels. We started speculating, but the only thing that we could do in the end was go to the nether and mine quartz, as it gives a lot of XP even at level 28 or 29, and it's easy to find. Yes, we have died here multiple times, but nether quartz is never really in a hard place to get, so after like a 4-hour session, we finally got our godlike armor. I'm talking a bow with power 4, flame, unbreaking 3, infinity, and punch 2. Gear with protection 4, unbreaking 3, and diamond swords with looting 3 and sharpness 4. It's been a while since we've defeated the Ender Dragon, so honestly, we still thought we were going to die. But even with all of those doubts, we eventually are going to have to do it. But first, I decided to grind some more by evolving my Roggenrola into this beautiful blue Boldor and Dragonair into the Dragonite that it always deserved to become. But it doesn't even come close to flying as fast as Crobat, so we'll probably just just put this in the box in the end. But this isn't the only thing I evolved. I also got this really cool looking Samurott that's ready to slice you up, Grottle into the Island Turtle Torterra, Galarian Meowth into Berserker, and finally Raboot into Footballing Cinderace. Now with all of the preparations done, my friend grabbed the Eyes of Ender and started locating the fortress. Once we got close, we started digging and eventually stumbled upon the portal. That only had one Eye of Ender in it already, so it's good I went farming. He filled in the missing places and boom, we teleported to the end. And the cool thing about playing the end in Cobblemon is you can actually fly on your Pokemon to destroy these crystals that normally heal up the dragon. But don't do as I did, because I stood way too close, fell off, and almost died. The battle didn't last long, however, because I'm the best sniper around. I play way too much Call of Duty, and with this powerful bow in my hands, the Ender Dragon stood no chance. I'm not going to lie, we were way too overgeared, and the only time I got close to dying was when I fell off of that thing. However, normally the dragon drops an egg, and for some reason we couldn't pick it up because every time we tried to, it teleported to a different location. So that means no souvenir for us, but there is Pokemon in here, and some pretty cool ones at that. I was able to get a Metang, an Elgyem, which is really fitting because it's an alien inside of the end, but also a Jirachi that sadly enough had no model, but I also think that this is the perfect place for Jirachi and maybe even Deoxys. Sadly enough, Cobblemon doesn't have any legendaries, hence why we didn't run into a single one in this run. However, I'm still happy to be able to go home with this mythical Pokemon Jirachi. There wasn't much else to do in the end, and we still had a couple of days remaining, so I went back home to check out my newly acquired mythical, and it seems to work fine. It has the moves it's supposed to have. You can battle with it. There's just no model for it. With the Ender Dragon defeated, there was only two more things for us to do, and that was get one more shiny and get a Pokemon to level 100. So I traded my Boulder to my friend to show you this beautiful Gigalith. I think this is by far my favorite thing I've captured in this journey, but it isn't over yet because I spent my last couple of days grinding up Pukebat and evolving Pokemon, and here's a compilation of the best ones. The best pseudo-legendary Metagross, the gigantic Wailord, a flying Dodrio without wings, still don't know how that works, the coolest cat around, Luxray, the bird of steel Corviknight, the biggest bug you'll ever see Scolipede, the tiniest Pokemon Joltik that can also sit on your shoulder, and last but not least, the fiery bird Talonflame. But day 100 had arrived and I still hadn't found my last shiny. And Crobat also hadn't hit level 100 yet because there's no trainers around and I can only battle wild Pokemon. But even with these two failures, I feel like we have accomplished a lot and I had a ton of fun playing Minecraft Cobblemon with my friends. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as well, and hopefully I'll be able to do this again someday. And if you want that to happen, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm Zwiggo, and I'll see you all next time.